recruiting young scientists.
Okay, let's start over, please. Yeah,
Ready?
start over, yeah. Go.
Okay. Our topic is recruiting young scientists, and the participants in this discussion were Merrilea, Mayo, Richard Stafford, Kennan, Salinero, and Tobias Mayo. And what we've come up with is first a list of ways to get students back into science or into science, and one is generally to generate interest, excitement. We know that there's an economic disadvantage for small interactive classes, and there needs to be some way to address that. And we ask, well, how do you measure talent? How do you know where the good students are to recruit? And there was a good deal of discussion about a network of science teachers, and because there's a lack of knowledge within science for students to go into science. How do they get there? How do you get? Where do you go to school? What do you need to do to go to certain schools? You want to study physics? What do you do? And one thing that we came up with, getting back to generating excitement and interest, was having cross-functional teams, just like a sports team, having science teams to get kids together and interested and work and learning to cooperate. But there's always, especially in high school, it's really important to be part of a group and not to be a loner. And that would generate much more interest and draw more students into science, we believe. And also, there really is no ownership in the community for science that we see, like you have a sports team. We need to think of some way to generate ownership within science. So, we have a little scheme here. At the top was, how would we recruit students? Starting at middle school, we would go to teachers. Who has got it? Who has got it, as I always said. But who are the good students? Who are the students that really seem to be lit up by science? We can invite them to science fairs, summer camps, weekend camps, and the recruiter would follow them from middle school to, say, a science high school, or even just follow them to high school, pass them off onto the science teachers in high schools. And again, who are the good students? And again, keep these kids engaged in science, whether they go on to college or not. It's a place where we can say, these are the good students, and then have college recruiters know the science teachers in high school to follow that. Perhaps one way we know that we think would work is team-based, and that would require some curriculum changes within high schools to have more team-based science learning. Recruiter is a mentor, and that's something we thought needs to be all the way through, is this recruiter that we've written in different places really mentors the child into how to move on to the next step and brings them along. And again, teaching it, going back to curriculum change, one kind of skill set we think is really lacking, and this doesn't even need to be taught in a science class, it could be taught in a history class, and that is scientific inquiry. How do you pose a question, and how do you answer a question? Also in engineering, how do you build, how do you design an item? These are things that just aren't taught, and that we think are questions that could excite children, that doesn't necessarily have to be done in a physics class or a chemistry class. It could be done in an art class. So that's the summary of how we can go about recruiting children and get them excited and move them on into our college programs and PhD programs.